There are moments in time when heaven leans closer to earth, moments when the unseen becomes visible and what once felt ordinary begins to carry divine weight. I believe 7 November is one of those moments. A day marked not by man's calendar, but by God's intention. Be alert, because what's coming will not just shift circumstances, it will redefine destinies. There are moments in life when everything begins to move and nothing seems stable anymore. What once felt secure starts to tremble. What once was clear becomes uncertain, and the things we depended on begin to slip through our fingers. It's in those moments that many people cry out, wondering where God is and why everything seems to be falling apart. But heaven sees differently. What looks like chaos on the surface is often a divine rearrangement underneath. The shaking you feel is not a sign of God's absence. It is a sign of his movement. When God begins to shake something, it's because he's preparing to shift it into divine order. Throughout Scripture, every time God brought transformation, there was first a shaking. When Moses stood before the Red Sea, the ground trembled as the waters parted. When the walls of Jericho fell, the sound of trumpets and shouting caused the earth to quake. When Jesus breathed his last breath on the cross, the whole earth shook and the veil in the temple was torn. Shaking always precedes glory. It's heaven's announcement that something greater is about to emerge. The shaking is not punishment, it's positioning. It's God's way of removing what cannot carry his next move so that what is unshakable can remain. The challenge for us is that shaking feels uncomfortable. It disturbs our sense of control. It breaks routines, confronts complacency, and exposes what's been built on weak foundations. But divine shaking is not meant. Awareness is the doorway through which heaven's direction becomes visible in our daily lives. Many people move through seasons unaware of what God is doing, mistaking silence for distance and confusion for delay. But awareness changes everything. It allows you to recognize divine patterns that the distracted mind overlooks. It's not about trying harder or doing more. It's about learning to perceive what God is already saying and doing around you. When your spirit becomes aware, your decisions begin to carry the fragrance of divine timing. You start to see that nothing in your journey is random. Every interruption, every delay, and every encounter carries a whisper of purpose. God doesn't always speak in thunder. Sometimes he speaks in the stillness that we ignore. Awareness sharpens your ability to hear that still small voice. It's the art of tuning your inner ear to the frequency of heaven while the noise of the world grows louder. The spiritually unaware live by reaction. The aware live by revelation. When awareness rises, fear loses its hold because revelation brings peace even when logic brings questions. Awareness is not just knowing what's happening, it's discerning why it's happening and what heaven is teaching you through it. In moments of awareness, you begin to see that alignment is not something you fight for, it's something you flow into. Alignment happens naturally when your heart, your thoughts, and your steps begin to move in rhythm with God's direction. When you become aware of his presence in the smallest details, your words carry more weight, your prayers become more focused, and your peace becomes unshakable. Awareness unlocks that kind of alignment where life stops being about control and starts being about cooperation. Instead of striving to make things happen, you start to partner with what God is already doing. There are seasons when you may feel like everything is standing still, but awareness reveals that stillness is not inactivity. God often hides progress in silence. Awareness lets you recognize the unseen movement of heaven even when your circumstances haven't caught up yet. It allows you to trust the process because you can sense that the presence of God hasn't left, even if his plan isn't visible yet. When you live aware, you stop chasing signs and start walking in confidence, knowing that alignment is not an event, but a lifestyle. Awareness also protects alignment from the subtle attacks of distraction. The enemy doesn't always come with loud temptation. Often he comes with noise. He fills your attention with minor worries, endless scrolling, pointless comparison, and emotional exhaustion, anything to dull your awareness of the Spirit. But when you cultivate awareness, you regain authority over your focus. You start recognizing the difference between urgency and importance, between what demands attention and what truly deserves it. Every day becomes an altar, and every choice becomes an act of worship. Awareness allows you to bring heaven's perspective into earthly decisions. The moment you become aware of God's presence in your situation, alignment begins to form effortlessly. You notice divine appointments that others miss. You feel prompted to speak words of encouragement, to pray when others panic, to wait when others rush. That's alignment moving in step with divine timing instead of forcing your own. Awareness unlocks that flow. It turns ordinary days into encounters and interruptions into invitations. It gives meaning to the mundane and reveals miracles hidden in routine. The greatest shift happens when you stop asking God to join what you're doing and start asking how to join what He's doing. That's the fruit of awareness. It aligns you not only with God's plan, but also with His pace. Many lose peace, not because they are off course, but because they are out of rhythm. Awareness restores rhythm. It teaches you to slow down when He's silent, to move when He whispers, and to rest when He says wait. You start living not by schedules, but by signals from heaven. Awareness also unlocks relational alignment. When your spirit is attuned to God's voice, you begin to discern who belongs in your season and who doesn't. You start recognizing people sent to stretch you, not just comfort you. Awareness teaches you to value divine connections that carry destiny within them. It helps you see through motives, beyond appearances, and into spiritual assignments. Every person, every moment, every delay begins to reveal divine patterns that align you closer to your calling. The truth is, awareness doesn't change your circumstances. It changes your posture within them. It allows you to walk through storms with calm, to face uncertainty with clarity, and to carry peace that others can feel. When you live aware, you realize that alignment isn't forced, it's received. You no longer pray from desperation, but from partnership. Your life becomes synchronized with the heart of heaven, and every step, even the uncertain ones, begins to carry divine purpose and unseen direction. There are moments in time when heaven moves faster than the world expects. Seasons that once dragged on suddenly begin to shift, and what seemed impossible starts to unfold effortlessly. This is what it feels like when heaven releases acceleration. It's not the product of human effort or ambition. It's the rhythm of divine timing overtaking delay. When acceleration comes, things that once required years begin to align in days. Doors that remained closed without reason suddenly swing open, and prayers that felt buried under silence begin to echo with answers. It's not because you've worked harder, it's because heaven has chosen to breathe upon your timeline. Acceleration is not about rushing, it's about divine synchronization. It's when your season catches up with your purpose. For too long, many have walked faithfully through slow, hidden, unseen years, wondering if God has forgotten them. But those seasons were not wasted, they were preparation. The roots were growing deep so that the fruit could one day grow quickly. When heaven accelerates your path, it does not skip process, it redeems time. Every delay, every detour, every closed door begins to make sense under the light of divine speed. God is not in a hurry, but when the moment comes, He moves swiftly. In acceleration, there is a divine ease. Things that once took great effort start to flow. Conversations happen at the right moment, opportunities appear out of nowhere, and favor begins to follow you in places you never expected. This is what it looks like when God multiplies your steps. He adds His suddenly to your someday. The Spirit of God begins to breathe on what was stagnant, and movement comes not through striving, but through surrender. You don't have to push when the wind is behind you. You just have to lift your sail. But before acceleration comes, there is often a stillness that tests your patience. Heaven prepares acceleration in silence. It may feel like nothing is moving, but beneath the surface, things are aligning that your eyes cannot yet see. God is setting divine connections, unseen preparations, and hidden positioning into motion. The reason he asks you to trust him in delay is because he knows acceleration is coming, and if you are not grounded, you will mistake speed for chaos. The waiting was never punishment. It was strengthening for the pace of what's ahead. When acceleration begins, it doesn't just affect your circumstances, it transforms your perception. You start to see that what looked like wasted years were actually foundational years. God doesn't skip steps, he redeems them. He causes all things to work together for good, even the seasons you didn't understand. In the moment of divine acceleration, everything begins to converge: purpose, preparation, people, and timing. Suddenly, what didn't connect before starts to align perfectly. What once seemed fragmented comes together in harmony, and you realize heaven had been orchestrating it all along. There's a spiritual quickening that comes with acceleration. Revelation becomes sharper. Ideas come faster. Discernment grows stronger. It's as if heaven is downloading strategies into your spirit at a pace you've never experienced before. This isn't pressure, it's partnership. When heaven moves, it invites you to move with it. You'll notice that in moments of acceleration, opportunities will require quick obedience. The window opens briefly because God is teaching you to respond without hesitation. What took years to build in one season can now take weeks because grace is doing what effort never could. Acceleration is also a divine equalizer. It redeems what was lost, wasted, or stolen. The years of struggle begin to be overtaken by a wave of restoration that moves faster than the pain that preceded it. You may have walked through long nights of endurance, but acceleration turns weeping into breakthrough. The pace of God overtakes the plans of the enemy. The very area of your greatest delay becomes the field of your quickest harvest. When heaven releases acceleration, it brings justice to waiting hearts. This season demands sensitivity more than strategy. Acceleration requires awareness of divine timing, not anxious striving. You can't manufacture what only God can release, but you can posture yourself to receive it. Stay aligned in faith, stay rooted in peace, stay ready to respond. When acceleration begins, distractions will try to pull your focus. The enemy knows he can't stop what God has set in motion, but he'll try to slow your response through confusion and fear. Don't let him. When you feel the wind of acceleration, move with it. Don't question it. Don't delay it. Simply obey. Acceleration also brings multiplication. What you sow in faith during acceleration bears fruit beyond natural expectation. Small steps carry large impact. Short prayers carry long results, and brief moments of obedience produce eternal outcomes. Heaven compresses time, allowing you to accomplish in a short span what once required a lifetime. You'll find yourself in places you didn't plan to be, meeting people you didn't expect to meet, and walking through doors you never even knocked on. That's the beauty of acceleration. It's not earned, it's appointed. When heaven releases acceleration, it's a sign that purpose and timing have finally met. The waiting season turns into movement, the preparation season turns into manifestation, and the slow rhythm of faith gives way to the swift rhythm of fulfillment. God begins to move so quickly that your only response is surrender and gratitude. The same hand that once held you still now pushes you forward, and all you can do is move with the wind of heaven. There comes a time in every journey when holding on becomes heavier than letting go. We often pray for new beginnings while still clinging to what God is trying to end. But heaven operates on a rhythm of closure and creation. What dies in one season makes room for what is born in the next. Old doors must close before new ones can open. The closing of a door doesn't mean rejection, it means redirection. It's God's way of protecting you from what can no longer sustain your growth. Many struggle with this transition because closure often feels like loss, but in reality, it's preparation. God is not taking something from you. He's making space for something greater. We tend to measure God's goodness by how much we gain, yet often His mercy is revealed in what He removes. The relationships that fade, the opportunities that fall through, the environments that suddenly no longer fit, these are not accidents, they are divine edits. Heaven is precise about timing, and sometimes God will close a door so firmly that no amount of effort or prayer can reopen it. Not because He is cruel, but because He knows what's behind that door can no longer carry the weight of who you are becoming. He closes doors not to limit you, but to lead you. Every closed door tests our trust. When something ends abruptly, the human heart searches for reasons, for closure, for understanding. But faith doesn't always come with explanations, it comes with invitations. When God closes a door, He's inviting you into deeper dependence. He's asking you to walk through uncertainty with the assurance that His hand is still guiding the way. Trust becomes the bridge between the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. The tension you feel in transition is proof that heaven is moving. You're not being abandoned, you're being advanced. Some doors close gently and others slam with a force that leaves you stunned. There are seasons where the closing feels like heartbreak, a relationship that ends, a dream that dissolves, a plan that unravels. Yet even in those moments, heaven is not silent. What looks like the enemy's disruption is often God's redirection. Sometimes He has to remove your comfort before you'll pursue your calling. The door you're crying over might have been the very thing keeping you from stepping into the fullness of what's next. When God says it's over, it's not punishment, it's permission to move forward. If you try to keep walking through doors that heaven has closed, you'll exhaust yourself. You'll keep trying to revive what God has already released. The energy used to maintain the old could have been the faith used to embrace the new. There's a reason certain things stopped working, a reason you lost passion for what once excited you. God has shifted seasons, and your spirit knows it. What you call frustration is often a signal that grace has lifted from that place. When grace leaves, don't stay. Move. Every step away from what no longer fits brings you closer to what's waiting to unfold. New doors rarely open while your hands are still gripping the old. God doesn't compete with your attachments. He waits for surrender. Surrender is the key that unlocks divine transition. When you finally release what you thought you needed, you make space for what God knows you're ready for. Sometimes that means walking away from stability, security, or reputation, but on the other side of obedience lies expansion. The new door won't look like the old one, and that's the point. It's meant to stretch your faith, not repeat your history. When old doors close, you also discover who you've become. The same version of you that walked through past seasons may not fit through the new doorway. God refines identity through endings. You can't step into a new chapter carrying the same fears, mindsets, and patterns that defined your past. Every closed door is an invitation to shed the weight of what was and walk lighter into what is. Letting go is not weakness, it's wisdom. You can't carry yesterday's lessons into tomorrow's breakthroughs without first releasing yesterday's burdens. It's easy to praise God when new doors open, but real faith praises Him when old ones close. That's the kind of trust that moves heaven. Closure is not failure, it's fulfillment. It means that season accomplished what it was meant to do. You learned, you grew, you changed, now it's time to move. The key to walking into the new is gratitude for what has ended. Thank God for the doors that closed, for they protected you from paths that no longer aligned with your destiny. What feels like a setback is often a setup for acceleration. As one door closes, don't rush to find the next one. Take a moment to pause, to breathe, to listen. The silence between doors is sacred. That's where God whispers direction. That's where faith matures. You may not see the new door yet, but heaven has already prepared it. It will open when your heart is ready, not when your emotions are. So release what was, honor what is ending, and stay expectant for what's next. The sound of closing doors is not the sound of loss, it's the sound of destiny shifting into motion. Peace is not the absence of conflict, it is the presence of God. It is the stillness that exists in the middle of storms, the calm that cannot be explained by circumstance. Many search for peace in outcomes, in stability, in answers, but true peace is not found in what surrounds you, it's found in who surrounds you. When God is present, peace becomes your atmosphere. It doesn't mean life becomes quiet, it means your heart does. His presence silences the chaos without removing the noise. It steadies you when everything else shakes. Peace is heaven's fingerprint, the evidence that you are standing where God stands, even when you can't see what he's doing. When the Spirit of God fills a room, the first thing you notice isn't power or emotion, it's peace. Peace that humbles anxiety, peace that disarms fear, peace that feels like an invisible covering over your thoughts. That peace is not weak, it's a force stronger than any storm. It is the tangible manifestation of trust. It's heaven's way of saying, I'm here. Many people chase signs, confirmations, or emotional highs to feel close to God, but peace is the most consistent confirmation of his nearness. It's his language of reassurance, his quiet voice saying, you don't need to understand, you just need to rest. Peace is the atmosphere of faith. Where there is faith, peace follows. It doesn't mean your circumstances change immediately. It means your response to them does. When faith takes root, panic loses power. You begin to see that not everything needs an explanation when your heart is anchored in the one who holds the outcome. The world teaches us to find peace when everything is stable, but heaven teaches us to carry peace into instability. Peace is not something you wait for. It's something you walk in. It's a fruit of alignment, a sign that your heart, mind, and spirit are in step with God's rhythm. Sometimes God will test your peace before he changes your situation. You'll face moments where you have every reason to fear, yet you'll feel a strange calm rising within you. That's not denial, that's divine awareness. It's the realization that the same God who parted seas and silenced storms is dwelling inside you. When his presence lives in you, no external pressure can overthrow the internal peace he provides. You may be surrounded by uncertainty, but inside, something unshakable remains. That's what it means to live with heaven's peace. It's stability in motion, rest while running, trust without evidence. Peace becomes your compass. It tells you when you're walking in God's will and when you've stepped outside of it. If you lose peace, it's often a sign you've wandered from his presence or his pace. Decisions made in anxiety rarely lead to alignment. That's why peace is not passive, it's directional. It guides you without shouting. The voice of peace never argues, it simply waits for you to listen. When you sense unrest, don't rush forward, pause. When you feel stillness, move boldly. Learning to follow peace is learning to follow God. His direction is wrapped in calm, not confusion. The world offers a counterfeit peace, temporary comfort that depends on control. It tells you that if you fix everything, manage everyone, and understand every outcome, you'll finally rest. But that's an illusion. Real peace doesn't require control, it requires surrender. It's not born from having answers, but from trusting the one who does. When you surrender, peace becomes effortless. You stop striving to hold everything together because you realize he already is. Surrender is not giving up, it's giving over. It's letting God be who he is, the keeper of your soul and the anchor of your peace. Peace is also a weapon. It's how you fight battles without losing strength. The enemy can't defeat a believer who refuses to lose their peace. He thrives on chaos, on reaction, on fear, but when you remain still, you frustrate his schemes. Peace disarms the warfare around you because it removes agreement with anxiety. When you stay calm, you keep authority. Jesus demonstrated this in the storm while the disciples panicked. He slept. His rest was not ignorance, it was dominion. His peace wasn't denial of danger, it was awareness of authority. That same peace now lives within you. The presence of God doesn't always change the storm, but it always changes your posture in it. You start responding differently. You no longer need to rush to fix everything, to explain yourself, or to control the outcome. You learn to stand still and know that He is God. Peace gives you vision when fear clouds your mind. It gives you wisdom when emotion demands reaction. It gives you clarity when confusion tries to dominate. Every great decision born in heaven begins with peace. Peace is not a luxury for calm seasons. It's a necessity for turbulent ones. It's the quiet confidence that even when you don't see the path, you know the presence. It's the unspoken awareness that you're not walking alone. When everything else fades, peace remains, because peace is a person, not a feeling. The closer you draw to Him, the steadier your heart becomes. Peace is the proof that you're exactly where you need to be, not because the world approves, but because heaven does. Every visible change in life begins long before it can be seen. Transformation doesn't start in circumstances. It begins in the unseen realm of the Spirit. What manifests in the natural is simply the echo of what has already shifted inside you. Many people try to change their environment, their habits, or their situations without first allowing God to transform their inner world. But every true breakthrough, every lasting change is born in the Spirit. The invisible always precedes the visible. Before God does something around you, He will always do something within you. When God desires to bring change, He begins by stirring the human spirit. You start to feel restlessness where you once felt comfort. The things that satisfied you before suddenly feel empty. That restlessness is not frustration, it's a signal. Heaven is announcing that your spirit is outgrowing your current season. What feels like discomfort is really divine preparation. God is shifting your inner posture to match where He's taking you next. The mind resists it, but the Spirit recognizes it. Something starts to awaken inside you, a hunger, a stirring, a longing for more. That's the birthplace of transformation. Before the Israelites ever left Egypt, freedom began in their spirit. Long before chains fell, hearts began to cry out. God heard that cry and responded, not to their physical condition, but to their spiritual awakening. Every external move of God is a response to an internal cry. When you begin to see change in your surroundings, it's because heaven has already shifted something inside your heart. That's why protecting your inner life is essential, because the Spirit is the soil where God plants every new beginning. Change that starts in the Spirit cannot be stopped by natural opposition. When God ignites something within you, no external circumstance can undo it. The enemy may try to delay it, distract it, or distort it, but he cannot destroy what was birthed in the presence of God. That's why it's so important to align your thoughts, words, and faith with what your spirit already knows. When you agree with heaven in the unseen, you give permission for the seen to align with it. The delay between what you sense in the spirit and what you see in the natural is not denial, it's development. God is shaping your character to carry the weight of what you're believing for. So often, people grow weary when they don't see instant results. They pray, believe, and declare, yet nothing seems to move. But faith is not about immediate visibility. It's about internal consistency. While you're waiting for things to shift around you, heaven is shifting things inside you. God works from the inside out. He's building endurance, deepening trust, and refining your perspective. What you perceive as stagnation is often God strengthening your foundation. When the inner structure is strong, the outer change can last. Every revival, every miracle, every movement of God in history began first as an invisible spark in someone's spirit. Before walls fell, worship was raised. Before provision came, obedience was given. Before breakthrough manifested, faith was spoken. That's how heaven operates. It looks for agreement in the unseen. When your spirit aligns with what God is saying, the natural realm eventually follows. You can't expect external order while carrying internal chaos. Peace, focus, and faith are spiritual climates that attract manifestation. The Spirit of God is always ahead of time. He moves in the unseen realm, arranging people, moments, and opportunities before they ever appear in your life. Sometimes you can feel this before you can explain it, a sense that something is coming, even though nothing looks different yet. That's your spirit bearing witness to what heaven is preparing. If you learn to respond to that inner knowing instead of what your eyes see, you'll stay in sync with divine timing. The natural will always catch up to what has already been released in the Spirit. This is why prayer, worship, and intimacy with God are not optional disciplines. They are tools of transformation. Every time you pray, you're shaping the unseen. Every time you worship, you're building alignment between heaven and earth. Every time you choose faith over fear, you're pulling future realities into your present moment. Your spirit becomes a conduit for what heaven wants to release. Change begins there in surrender, in quiet trust, in spiritual agreement. The more your spirit stays connected to God, the faster the natural world aligns with His will. When you start living from the inside out, frustration begins to fade. You stop striving for outcomes and start cultivating alignment. You realize that true transformation isn't about rearranging the visible, it's about renewing the invisible. The peace, the strength, and the clarity that come from within begin to influence everything around you. People notice your calm in chaos, your hope and uncertainty, your joy and hardship, because what's in your spirit eventually overflows into your world. Everything begins in the spirit. The words you speak, the dreams you carry, the faith you live, all are spiritual seeds that eventually bear natural fruit. You may not see it yet, but heaven has already started the process. Don't let temporary silence convince you that nothing is happening. God always starts in the unseen, and when the time is right, the natural will reveal what the Spirit has already completed. So lift your eyes. Don't fear the shaking. Embrace the shift. Don't run from change. Run toward it. Something divine is unfolding. And those who are alert, those who are listening, will not just witness it, they will carry it. The world may not understand what's happening on 7 November, but you will. Because your spirit has been waiting for this moment. Be alert, be ready, because everything is about to change.